So welcome everybody to tonight's presentation. I'm going to be talking this evening about email marketing trends for 2022. And this is part of a series that I'll be doing for folks in the Southeast Uplift area. If at any time you have questions about what I'm talking about, or you want to interject, you are welcome to do that. So I was going to do some introductions. I think we just sort of did them. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. But again, if I am talking and you have questions, you feel free to you can either raise your hand or you can just speak up and ask a question, and I'll try to answer it. All right. So my name's Albert Kaufman, and I live here in Southeast Portland. I've been a Portland resident since 2002. I moved down here from Seattle, and I have been running a marketing company called Albert Ideation since about 2008. And basically during that time, I have been teaching people, small businesses, nonprofits, individuals, political campaigns, really anyone who's interested in how to market whatever the thing is that you are marketing. By marketing, that can mean selling something. It can mean getting your ideas out there. It can mean organizing people to take certain actions. So when I use the word marketing, or when this presentation talks about marketing, I want you to feel free to extrapolate to any of those things. Personally, I'm a local activist as well. So currently I'm working on two main issues. One is to lessen the use of gas-powered lawn equipment in our neighborhoods to make our neighborhoods quieter and less polluted. And then a second thing that I'm focused on is trying to keep trees standing in our city and to plant new ones. And for anyone who's paying attention, you may be aware that that is a significant issue right now, given the hot evening that we are sharing tonight. More trees make things cooler, so working on that. So whoever that was that just coughed, go ahead and mute yourself, unless you want your coughs to be part of this recording. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in and talk about some of the trends that are going on in the world of email marketing. And during the last while, during COVID, I'll just say it that way. A lot of companies moved towards online everything. I mean, this was already a trend before COVID happened, but during the time of COVID, we all obviously switched to things like what we're doing right now. 3 years ago, if somebody had asked me to do this presentation, I would have come to the Sewell offices and I would have given the presentation in person. And we've all kind of magically switched over to using Zoom and other technologies to connect with each other. And that's true for a lot of the marketing that we used to all do as well. So I'm going to talk about some of the tools that we use and some of the strategies. So as I just mentioned a moment ago, marketers have been increasing their digital engagement. And again, when I say marketers, this could also be nonprofit organizations. This could be really everybody that is trying to move people either towards buying something or doing something different. So take a moment and admit somebody into the room. Welcome new folks who've joined us. In terms of email marketing, and that's really what tonight's presentation is going to be about. Monday's presentation is going to be more about social media. And then the final presentation, which I think is next Thursday, is going to talk about a whole bunch of different tools that we'll use. But in terms of email marketing, many companies have and organizations have decided that that is a key digital channel. There's a lot of good reasons for that. Customers and readers expect that kind of communication, whether you're a church or you're a nonprofit or you're a person. Email tends to be one of the ways that we communicate with one another. And as I mentioned earlier, during the pandemic, that has just increased. The number of emails sent increases by, I think it's 2 billion emails every year. The number of people with email accounts continues to increase. And even though many of us have heard over the years, email is dead. Isn't social media more important? Isn't TikTok or Instagram or Facebook more important? Well, actually, it really turns out that the return on investment when you're using an email service provider, so sending out newsletters or even just emailing people directly, the response rate is higher, the open rates are higher. I'll just give you an example. When I send out a newsletter to 1,000 people, I get 200 to 300 people open it. When I post something on a Facebook page, even if I have thousands of people who have liked my Facebook page, which is in my case the true number, maybe I get 10 people looking at the thing that I have posted. So email and putting money into email marketing, or even just doing that work, really gives you a return on investment that's quite high. And another great thing about using email is that you, as the person who is sending the email, you own the list that you're sending to. So with Facebook, if I have a Facebook page, I can be kicked off Facebook tomorrow. And many people I know who do various kinds of marketing outreach, they have been shut off of Facebook for whatever reason. And sometimes for no good reason at all. So again, you own the list when you use email, and that is a big reason why people do. So in terms of customer engagement, this whole idea of data-driven, we're going to get into that more in a moment. So some goals of email marketing are to grow and retain your customer base and increase engagement. These are some of the highest goals that people say. And what that means is, constantly building your list and constantly trying to get people to open your email and perhaps take the action that you're asking for. So for instance, in my case, the issue that I raised earlier, that I'm working on getting rid of gas-powered leaf blowers and other tools, my hope is to consistently bring in new people who will follow the lead that I'm setting. So maybe it's writing to city council, or maybe it is writing a letter to the editor, or whatever it is. And so those are goals like it's talking about here in the presentation. So today we're going to talk about how to boost our results, how to use automation, and how to provide value to the people who are reading things that we're writing. I would say if you have something in the chat, maybe our administrator can call out the question if there's a good moment to do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rolling. And again, if you are participating today and you just want to speak out and ask a question, feel free to do that. I don't mind being interrupted. All right. So how to boost our results? So obviously, when you're writing to a group of people, different people, have different interests. So there are different places in the life cycle of your organization. They may have different ages. They may have different demographics. They may be in town. They may be out of town. They may be retired. They may be young people. There's just a plethora of different people who could be subscribed to whatever it is that you're doing. There's a great example, a great idea is to think about segmenting the people who you do reach out to. So for instance, here are some ideas of how one might segment. the people who are in your funnel or in your world. Cheryl, go ahead and ask your question, please.
So, we're with neighborhood associations, probably all of us. I don't know about the other people, but I am.
Okay.
And we can't segment our email any more than it is. We only have 2 channels we can do, and so right now we choose volunteers, and then we choose like the just regular old general one.
Sure. Yeah, and I've been a part of the local neighborhood association for a couple of years. I was a board member for the Richmond Neighborhood Association for the last couple of years, and I understand that challenge. There, I'm still gonna continue to talk about segmenting because I think it's important, because there will be people who are either gonna watch this at another time or who are on the call right now, who are not part of neighborhood associations. So just try to roll with me. And then in terms of neighborhood associations, there's all sorts of segmenting that one could do, if you wanted to, if you had the understanding of the technology. For instance, if you sent out a newsletter to 100 people, you could use something like a survey to say, are you a local business? Are you a local homeowner? Are you a renter? Are you a are you an owner? Or are you a renter? You could use gender if you wanted to. You could use, are you a past member? Are you interested in volunteering? Are you a potential volunteer? Did you go to this event? Did you go to that event? So there's all sorts of ways to potentially segment. I'm not sure why you're saying you can't, but let's just keep going a little bit, and perhaps this will give you some ideas. These are some ideas for a business-to-business consultant, how they might do some segmenting. In terms of how you actually do the segmenting, this is an image that shows, let's say a person clicked on a link within this newsletter. This is a newsletter that this consultant is going to send out. One way to segment a list that you have is by having someone click on a link. So for instance, if a person clicked on the words read more, which are a link within this newsletter, they could be, because they are interested in redesigning their website, they can be added to a list automatically just by clicking that link and already being part of the newsletter, the list that is being sent to. They can be added to a new list. This is a new feature in some email programs. This idea of adding to an absolutely new list and creating new lists from content that you're sending. The way I use this is, for instance, I just recently used this exact feature. I sent out a newsletter that went to the people who are wanting to take an action around gas-powered leaf blowers. And I said, I've got all these postcards that I want to have people have access to. If you'd like some postcards, click on this link and I will get back to you. And when they clicked on the link, they got a new email that was automatically sent to them that asked them for more information. How many would you like? This type of thing. Would you like to come get them? Would you like me to mail them to you, etc.? So here is more of how this particular feature works. So here is the link. Here's the text at the top. Here is the link that the person would be sent to. And then if you click on enable click segmentation, they get added suddenly to a new list called web design prospects. So you have to extrapolate a little bit and imagine how this could work for you. And it may or may not work for you. But I have been using, ever since this particular tool has been available, which is about, I would say, 2 years, I use it all the time. I use it to add people who are in one list to a different list. And there's lots of different ways that it can be used. Okay, so here are some different ways that one could segment if one were a nonprofit. Donors, people who give at different levels, We are looking at people who ride horses. So this is a horse riding therapy, and then people who are volunteers. I'm not going to dwell on that, but this is a little bit under the hood of what segmenting looks like once you have started to play around with it a little bit. You can start setting things up so that you can really dial in and get very specific. So for instance, okay, well, that noise is indicating that someone wants to talk to me. I'm just gonna have to wait. Sorry about that, and we'll just have to wait for that to go away, and I'll just keep going. So this is using donor data. There are different ways for a person to segment. And this, again, we're now looking at different kinds of integrations than one might set up. And again, probably for neighborhood associations, this is not necessarily something that most neighborhood associations drop into, but if you work for a nonprofit, this could be something that you might use. I'm going to go ahead and stopping sharing just for a second, because there is a good chance that what just happened might happen again. So sorry about the break. Did anyone have a question, since I took a little break from that? Okay. Let's see. What
I do. I was typing in the chat and thinking maybe a moderator would pop up.
Sure.
So you're basically talking about things. I don't. Maybe we do need to find out where everybody's from. But I'm from a neighborhood association, and we do a very basic MailChimp. We can only segment into two things. So what you're talking about is way above our pay grade. I mean, I appreciate the information, but if it's not useful, it's not useful. And are other people able to segment their list? Or is there a way that we're missing in our basic MailChimp?
Within MailChimp, you can create as many lists as you want. So you could be doing some of this. Absolutely, if you want to. And that will be, I'm not sure if you are one of the grantees. There's this part of the group that is attracted to these classes, who I will be spending an hour with. But that is also something that you and I might be able to discuss if you're interested. I could probably give you a little bit.
Could I answer to her as well?
Sure.
I'm Candace Jordan, and I'm with a nonprofit in North Tabor, but I've also been active in neighborhood associations. We have a MailChimp account, and recently we made use of the tag function. If you create and select different tags for different people, then when you're sending out an email, you can select. It's a lot simpler than doing segmenting in groups. You just specify that you want your email to go to a specific tag. So we have tags for like government, like we have tags for the state senators, and we have tags, for a variety of different things. And so when we're sending out a communication, we can target. And from my experience in neighborhood associations, I mean, you could have things like people who have volunteered for your cleanup every year, or, different projects or things, so that when that event comes around the next year, you're able to target something out to those people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so, that might be something for Sewell to consider, is doing maybe just a class on MailChimp for everyone. If many neighborhood associations are using MailChimp, I mean, that's something I could offer as well, is doing a training on MailChimp specifically. But right now we're sort of still at the 30,000 foot, having for some people, the ideas that I'm presenting are going to be very new. And for some people, they are, we're going to be in some different places. So just bear with me. And again, if you have questions or comments, you just jump right in. So again, we're still sort of in the segmenting area. We're using, right at the moment, a bicycle shop. And so this is, different information that could go to different groups. People who have purchased recently, people who have children, and then maybe one for everyone. And, not for neighborhood associations, I know for RNA, for instance, we didn't even have MailChimp. So those of you who are using something like that, you're ahead of the game. This concept here is that newsletters can also have dynamic content. So for every record that you have, or every person who has signed up, they could be, segmented by an event that they came to. They came to a street fair, they're a volunteer. So there's different ways to segment, and this is just showing one of them. So next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about automation. The idea of automation is, we've all experienced it before. Basically, like when you sign up for a newsletter, oftentimes you'll get a response back. For instance, when someone signs up for a MailChimp newsletter, they usually get a response back that says, verify that it's you, you do that, and then you usually get some kind of confirmation. Now you're subscribed to the newsletter. Well, there can be, that's just sort of the simplest level of automation. But what can happen, for instance, this right here, this welcome email, that email is the most open email that your organization will ever have, is that first email. So really what you want to do is put a lot of your eggs into that basket. You want to have that first email that comes back spell out as much as possible what a person can expect, and maybe give them an action step to take. Come visit our website, come to one of our upcoming meetings. Whatever you think is a valuable thing for them to do right off the bat, you want that to be in your welcome email. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about automation. Here are a couple of examples of automation. So for instance, the one on the left, the happy birthday email. You can, when a person signs up for your list, ask for their birthday. Not everyone will give you their birthday, but if you have a person's birthday, you can always send them an email. So maybe for a neighborhood association, it's not exactly appropriate to send somebody a happy birthday note, but for some organizations and certainly for some businesses, that could be something very valuable. So for instance, I know a lot of people who are massage therapists really want to offer their clients an opportunity to come in for a reduced price on their birthday. All of us have experienced restaurants that offer this type of thing. And what's fantastic about it is that, we're talking about, again, marketing. And what is marketing? Marketing is really all about repetition. And so any chance that you have to remind people that your organization or that you exist is a good thing. So this idea of a birthday email or an anniversary email, the birthday one is an obvious one where they receive something on the day of their birthday or maybe a week before. The one on the right is an anniversary email. So that can be used by any organization. A year ago, you joined up and signed up to be a part of what we do. Thank you. And, here's what's new with us, or here's how you can, take further advantage of what your participation is. So these are some ideas that can come with a birthday email. When I've talked about, a free item, complimentary service, or some kind of coupon. With the anniversary email, these are some, really the last one is kind of key for what I just mentioned, that constant reminder that your organization or that you exist is useful. Then there's something like an automated series. And this could be something, for instance, that Sul could be using, where, for instance, new board members join up. The first email that comes to them is, welcome to the board. Here is your board member handbook. Please review it. If you have any questions, hit reply and ask your question. The second email could be, some other information about Sewell. You know, here is like recent cool things that we've done. You should know some of the history of the organization that you just joined. And maybe the third one is something else. I have created multiple automated series for my business, but also just for fun. And, you know, I have one which is Albert's 11 life tips. And I send this out to anybody who wants to sign up for it. I think about 350 people have gone down that path, and it's 11 life tips. Some simple things like always look at the sunset and, you know, drink lots of water. But I obviously fill those out a little bit more. But again, an automated series for somebody who joins your organization can be a fantastic thing. Again, it's a reminder that you exist, and it can actually provide some guidance to new members of your organization. I think any neighborhood association, for instance, could have a 10-part series, one of them on, you know, neat things to do in the neighborhood. The second one could be bike pathways. The third one could be, you know, interesting events that generally happen during the year. Fourth one could be local parks. I'm just making these up off the top of my head, but, you know, you can imagine that if you joined a neighborhood association or even just showed interest in it, and all of a sudden you started getting back some really nice looking emails that came back to you saying, you know, welcome aboard. You could probably get a lot more engagement from the people who are interested. You know, email number 5, here's how to join as a board member. Email number 6, you know, here are some videos of recent board member meetings. You know, here's the value of being part of a neighborhood association. Here are our bylaws, here's our website, whatever. All right, new person. Go ahead, Cheryl.
You just mentioned like 6 different possible emails. In the past, I've done automated series, which I love. I like, and you just gave me some great tips, which I think we're going to do in our neighborhood. But
oh, great.
6 seems excessive, and I just wanted to ask, have you guys been doing 6? Like, remember, my information is like since 2014. I used to run campaigns. So my information is like since 2014 old. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, you know, you'll learn by doing it. So let's say you do a series of 3, you know, that is going to give you certain feedback. You're going to hear back from, you know, because that's the cool part about sending email is that what you get back. It's like fishing, you know, especially if you ask for feedback, you're going to get back. Let's say you send one that's like, here are all the parks that are around our neighborhood, and their websites or their opening hours or whatever it is. You're going to hear back from somebody who's going to say, oh my God, I didn't realize that pool was there, or I didn't realize that community center was open, whatever the information is. And then you might hear crickets, but you might hear, you really won't know until you actually try and do some of this stuff. And but I highly recommend trying it, because what I find happens is I hear back from people. So for instance, I have an automated series called Song a Day, and I have one friend at the moment who's going through a particular sort of a second version of this. I wanted to test it out, and we're both going through it at the same time. And almost every day she writes me back and says, oh my God, I had forgotten about that song, or oh my God, what a cool resource. So as you build these, it's sort of like build them and they will come. So you know, you've tried this before and you have some experience with it. So I'm glad you found something I offered valuable, and I encourage you to try it with the neighborhood association and see what comes of it. So I'm just going to move on. So here are, again, we're back to the cycling example, different ideas of, you know, we're sort of getting back to a business thing, but you can also see how these are laid out. You know, reasons why to join the club, the unique aspect of the club, fear of missing out, you know, giving people a little bit of FOMO. What's interesting too is that these buttons that they're showing, you know, this newsletter could end up getting forwarded somewhere. You know, you can never really tell where things are going to land. And so you also want to always include a way for someone who's not part of your experience to join your experience. And that's what this right here is about. this is to join an event, and right here is to actually join the organization. But you want to always give people an opportunity to sign up for the newsletter. This is true also, I want to mention with any of you who have websites, you want to make sure that there's a way for people to give you their contact information. And why is that? Because when someone comes to a website, 95% of the time, probably more than that, there's a good chance that they will not come back to that website, no matter what website it is, except for Google or their 401k. But in general, people do not return to websites. So you always want to make sure that you can gather some contact information so that you can continually reach out to the people who have shown interest. There are now new tools out there that are even beyond my pay grade, but they're out there that can harvest my contact information. Let's say I go visit a website. That website can find out my information and reach out to me. And I think that's very creepy. I do not like playing in that sandbox, but the tools are out there now. So, and you've probably received communication. You may have received weird text messages that come out of the blue, where someone's saying, and I get them now probably once a day. I get a message that says, I have this sales tool that you might be interested in. And I'm like, no, stop. I don't want that. So anyway, so yeah, there's different kinds of series that you can do. We talked about this a little bit already. Thank you, providing information, asking people for feedback. These are all great, ways to approach sending out information in an automated series. These are a couple more ideas. And this is being recorded, by the way. So if you got here late or if you'd like to review some of the slides, this will be available to you. So what do you think are some of the best ways to boost your open rate? And anyone is welcome to chime in if you'd like. And I will provide some concepts here as well. Okay, you're quiet. I will just tell you. Some of the best ways are having a compelling subject line, making sure that the email that is in the from area is something that people recognize. The fact that the person has opened your email in the past is a good indication that they might be interested in the future. But what's really interesting about this question too is the open rate is not necessarily the main thing that you should be concerned about. Really what you're interested in is what are you hoping to get from sending out a newsletter? So if you're hoping that a person buys a ticket to an event or goes to the event that you're talking about or joins your organization, then possibly the click-through rate of whatever thing that you're offering people is what you're shooting for, not necessarily the open rate. But that said, there are a bunch of tools out there that can help you with this. Here's one of them. And I'm not sure this is available in MailChimp or not, but this is called Resend. It is? Great. Okay. So this is called Resend to Non-Openers. And the idea is I've sent the email out to 100 people and 20 people have opened it. And then 2 days later, I'm able to send to the people who didn't open it yet. And this usually leads to an additional 30% open, well, it depends what list you're sending to and what organization you are. But I find when I use this tool that I usually get an extra 5 to 10% will open it, which for me, if I'm sending to 1,000 people, is a significant number. And usually what I'll do is I'll change the subject line completely and then let her rip. And that does usually lead to a bunch more people opening the email. And what I find is interesting too about it is what I'll do, the way I do this, my strategy is I will send the newsletter out, which in the time that I think is the most effective time to send out, which is Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 3. That said, you could send out 2 in the morning and people will open your email when they open it. But what I'll do is I'll send the initial email out during that time period, and then I will send it again on the weekend, on Saturday. And interestingly, I mean, actually, not surprisingly, people are working or checking email every day, all day long. There was a, what's the word? There was a fact that I would say during my trainings that I used to do, where, I'd ask people in the room, how often do you think people check their email every day? And at the time, the average it was something like 150 times a day. And I don't personally recommend that, but I'm probably part of that club. And obviously, people in the work environment are even more part of that club. So, know that if you use this tool, you are likely to get a good result from it.
I have a
Go ahead,
question
go ahead, Cheryl.
about open rates.
Sure.
Is that really very accurate? Because do people have things that don't allow tracking or whatever? And
Right.
for example, when we send something to the state legislature, I'm sure some staff person is opening them, but there was absolutely nothing showing that any of them were opened.
Right. Yeah. It's a tricky aspect of emailing to try to understand what is actually happening with the open rate. The way that some programs work is that there is a pixel within your newsletter that when somebody opens the email, the pixel there's like a message between the pixel and the server that says, okay, this pixel has been viewed. Now, pixel is a very small piece of information on your newsletter. That said, now Apple Mail has made some kind of move where they are not allowing that transaction to happen. And so that's thrown off the statistics. That said, I can show you, my own open rates. I can give you kind of a little bit of a rundown towards the end of the presentation and show you a little bit of what that looks like. And I trust that if it says that 200 people are opening my email, that somewhere around that number are actually opening it. Now, what does it mean when it's open? It could just mean that a person is in their email inbox, maybe they're using Outlook, and they're scrolling through and, suddenly that pixel kind of fires off, and that's the result of that. But I also know that when it says to me that 200 people have opened my email and I'm asking for them to do something, and a bunch of them do it, whether it's click on something or vote on something or take a poll or take a survey or whatever it is, I'm following that those numbers. When you're sending to people who are getting a lot of email, like you just talked about, I think that your numbers are going to be very low because, for instance, trying to reach, a Senate candidate or a senator or a House representative, they get thousands of emails every day. And so I think trying to understand what the effectiveness of sending an email to an elected official, unless you're actually in a conversation with them, I think is very low. That said, there must be some way that they collect information about who is emailing them and what they're saying, just like they do with phone calls, just like they do with handwritten, letters. Though I doubt that many people are sending those anymore. They are, and faxes still happen as well, even though.
Albert,
Yeah.
faxes. If you want
Yes.
to get a hold of somebody in power, send them a fax. It comes through automatically.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, I haven't done it personally in a while, but I know that is true. And actually, the best way to, if you really want to affect change, is to show up in their offices. So But that is not always
Good
possible.
luck
Or
getting in.
actually,
Good luck getting in.
well, actually, a thing that has really changed activism for many of us in the last couple of years is Zoom. And participating in hearings is much easier now than it used to be. City council, committee hearings. I just testified the other day in front of the Urban Forestry Commission. For the amount of testifying, I'm not doing a ton of it, but if I want to testify at a House committee meeting in Salem, I don't have to drive to Salem anymore. It's quite fantastic, actually. That said, my physical presence, I think, does, or your physical presence does carry more weight if you did drive to Salem than if, you're zooming in. Anyway, I'm going to keep going because I want to make sure that we have some time for Q&A.
I still have a question about the
Sure.
emails. So you said you'll send a follow-up like however many days later, and you change the email subject line. Why not just do an A/B split?
Yep.
And the other thing I wanted to say is definitely send stuff on the weekends too, because I know my husband does not, he has all his personal emails, they go to the personal email account. He doesn't open those up when he's working. So he doesn't get to those till the weekend. There's not enough time in the day to open up personal emails. So
Right.
Send stuff during the weekends if you want to reach some people.
Right. And your comment earlier, I don't think I have a slide on this, but it's a valuable one where what you were recommending, this idea of doing an A/B split test, that feature with the program that I'm kind of demoing here is not available if you're using the repeat, the send to non-openers. You can do one or the other. But that A/B split testing idea is wonderful, where you say, okay, I'm going to send to 500 people. I'm going to send to 100 with this subject line. I'm going to send 100 with this other subject line, and whichever subject line gets more opens, then the rest of the emails goes to that with that subject line. So that's what you're talking about there, and that's a fantastic tool to make use of and try. And again, that might not be for everyone on the call, but it is available. So I'm going to cruise along here and talk about how to provide value. And some of this, again, is for businesses and not so much for nonprofits or neighborhood organizations. But this first one, I think, is actually kind of interesting because it does, I think, relate. We often are trying to build our organizations and we're trying to grow the thing that we're doing. And instead of like reaching out to the people who have already shown interest and trying to revive their interest, we're looking for new blood. And it's much more valuable it's much easier to keep a customer that you have, or keep a board member that you have, or keep a participant than it is to attract a new one. I think that's probably true with neighborhood associations as well. And then this last piece is, obviously trying to make your organization something that, people can recommend. If your world is full of conflict and contention, it's not going to attract new people, and it's going to be difficult to keep older people with you as well. So that's a challenging thing that, working in the neighborhoods, I'd have to deal with. So some information about valuable content. These are just some ideas that you might want to consider when you're writing out to people. Keeping things helpful, providing solutions to problems, and sounding friendly and approachable. That way you're going to hear back from people. These are some ideas about content that you could offer people who are going to be receiving it from you. Facts, like I talked about earlier, bus schedules, garbage pickup day changes, whatever it is. Providing articles from your blog or your website or your neighborhood newsletter, could be things that could end up in your email newsletter as well. And then this idea of an ask an expert in your field, you could be having some kind of an interview, let's say with a local arborist, or the editor of the Southeast Examiner, for instance. This is some more ideas about content that one might share. You know, infographics, those are really easy to make these days. I think something that's kind of underutilized in our region is things like, you know, what's going on with home sales, what's going on with crime, what's going on with car theft. I mean, we all know from reading or watching Nextdoor that these are all problems, but there's actually data out there about all of these things that could be shared, that could be useful to people who are going to be reading it. So here are some ideas around how to make what you're sending compelling. You know, the more you can use your own content, even if it's just running outside with your camera, your phone, and taking a picture of a tree, you know, versus using stock photos, I think is really valuable. It also helps you not get sued by people who own the imagery that you're using. There's lots of free imagery out there. There's no question that you can find that. But I think it's really easy also to find cool imagery in our region to use in your newsletter. So like I said before, sharing data is a good thing. Using video, going back to the open rates, if you even use the word video in your newsletter, and then there's an actual video link within your newsletter, that increases open rates like crazy. Another thing that increases open rates is using the word Facebook. So saying, okay, we're gonna, you know, lead people to our Facebook page or a Facebook group for the neighborhood. That also helps with open rates. Actually, something I didn't mention before, but using odd numbers in your subject line helps with open rates as well. So 3 tips, you know, to keep cool this summer, something like that. And then these links at the bottom, this type of thing is available in all email service provider programs these days. The ability to have someone be able to share your newsletter on social media. So you want to always include that. So sending more targeted emails, a little bit, we talked a little bit about automation, both to save time and I think also as a way of educating your readers and your followers. And then we also want to make sure to provide value. There are other ways, obviously, of getting the word out. These are some of them. And I'm going to talk more on Monday about using social media. Facebook and Instagram are kind of highlighted here. And then on my talk next Thursday, I will talk about all of these different topics, probably not as much email, although tying them all together and using them in tandem is really where you want to get to. That said, using one channel well is usually about as much as most people can handle. I've got a lot of these different ones going on, but I wouldn't say I'm doing them all well. I'd say I'm probably doing email and, well, I'm doing a couple of them well. All right, so we're to the Q&A part. And let's see, we've got about, oh, I turned my phone off. Okay, well, anyway, we're up to the Q&A part. So if you have a question, I'm happy to hear from you. And we can also, somehow Stephanie is the only person showing, but that might, maybe people are hiding. That's all fine. Anyway, does anyone have any questions? We got about 10 minutes left. I'm happy to demonstrate some of what I've been showing you with an actual email program, if you'd like, or I'm also just happy to chat. So I've got a thumbs up from someone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Stephanie, go ahead.
Well, I'm afraid this question is really quite ignorant and stupid, but to go back to the automated series, if over time, you know, you have 3 people this week and then 7 next week and 1 the next week and 7 next month, you know, to say they're new residents coming to Brentwood Darlington,
Yeah.
and you start each one with a new series. I mean, how do you, okay, so there must be ways of tracking, of making this happen correctly, right?
Well, what's interesting about it is, you know, there's an idea of um, worry that like not everybody is going through the system or the series at the same time. It's not a problem because they're all individuals. So if I get email 1, but someone else is on email 5, it doesn't really matter because I'll eventually get to email 5. You may hear back from the person who got email 5 or email 1, and you'll probably have an answer for them if they have a question. But it doesn't really matter where someone is within the series. So I have a number, as I mentioned, a number of email automated series, and if we look at where people are in the flow, there's maybe 10 people who are sitting on number 3 and about to get number 4, and then I might have one person down here who's on number 9. It's all good.
I understand that part, but my question is, there's software that will make sure that person number 1, then 2, then 3
Right.
starts their series and then
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's part of the automation, is that you set it up in such a way that you say, okay, person gets email number 1, then 3 days pass, then they get email number 2, then 3 days pass, and they get email number 3, and the next person that jumps in, they follow the same track as well.
They get number 1, then okay, fine.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
Cheryl, did you want to add to that?
No, that's what I was going to explain to her, is that everything is set up. You write those emails way in advance. They're just sitting there. And so anytime somebody clicks, I'm going to join your newsletter, they get the welcome one. And then you set it up to however long you want it to be, till probably like 3 or 4 days is like a good amount of time for the second one to come through. And then you might extend it to be like 1 week. The next week they get something else. The next week they get something else. But however many of those emails that you want to send, they're preloaded.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you just an example of what this looks like on my end, because we can. So here is the series that I was talking about a moment ago, which is called Song a Day 2. And here is how it looks for the people going through it. Nobody, a person gets the first one once they sign up. Immediately after the person is added to the list, they receive this first email. 160 people have received it, 40 people have opened it. And then if I scroll down, now this is not typical. You're probably not going to have series that have 40 steps. But you can see right here, somebody is waiting to get number 39. You can also see that by the time that they get to number 39, I've lost 8 people. Somebody went from here to here and then decided, okay, I've had enough of this. And then you can see down here, I've got a couple more people who are queued and are making their way through the series. Here I have 5 people queued. And then the series here ends. And like I said, this is not a typical campaign that you might have, but you can sort of see how it's set up. I'll show you one more that is maybe a little bit more typical. I'm actually building this one right now, which is a similar type of thing, but it actually looks a little bit different because the software has changed. So person joins the list, and then right away they get this email. Then 1 day passes, they get this next one. And I can keep adjusting this until I actually activate it. I can keep messing around with it.
Where do you get this software?
Okay, well, I'm using something called Constant Contact.
Oh, I heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the popular email software programs. And I'm a partner with them. That's why I have access to this particular slide deck. And I've been teaching for them and 2 people for the last, it's been a while, 14 years.
Okay, so so our neighborhood association could subscribe to Constant Contact,
Yeah,
then set
or
these automated series, and probably other things are available on Constant Contact.
yeah, it comes also with the survey tool. It also comes with a tool that allows you to send out to all of your different social media accounts if you happen to have some. So you can send out to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about that more on Monday.
Okay,
It also has a survey tool, like I mentioned, which is really good. It's nice to have a survey tool that, and I think MailChimp has something as well, where it's integrated. So if you send out a survey, you can see who in your list already answered in a certain way. That's another way to segment. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to weigh in with check if you're already using another service, just check around in their back end, and you probably have all of those tools available. You just probably did not know it. So I mean, just like tags, I knew that we had tags, but I was relying upon somebody saying we can only segment to lists. But I was like, I saw there were tags, and I'm just going to have to ask permission to get in there and look around, because maybe they do not understand how to utilize the tools.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's an ongoing learning experience, all of this. And the tools keep changing too, which is really can be a challenging aspect. Not only are we aging, and getting a little bit less able to follow what's happening,
Oh,
but the tool itself, is changing. I wanted to offer, if anyone who's with us tonight hasn't had a chance either to answer a question or ask a question, or just even introduce yourself, if you want to speak up, now's a good moment to do it. We just have a couple minutes left. And if that does not want to happen, then I want to thank you all for coming tonight. And we'll sign off at 7. Okay, I've got let's see, Jay has asked something in the chat. And so let's see. Oh, actually, I could look at the chat. If you want to keep the chat history, I think I'll have Stephanie go ahead and save it, and then she can get back to you with that. I guess I
I
could do
have
that too.
I have a suggestion for people too. If you already have a platform, like, okay, my organization was using MailChimp, and then all throughout COVID, things slowed down. And then when I went back to MailChimp, there was like lots of new features. And
Right.
so any of these platforms probably have a lot of videos, but also sometimes if you just Google, I mean, there's thousands of YouTube videos that explain things. So the information is out there. You just have to look for it sometimes. But I was amazed at all the things that had been added. And then again, for some of the platforms, I don't know about Constant Contact, but some of them have a free level, but then some of them have a paid level that you subscribe to that offers more features. And so it's also kind of looking and comparing and to see if that has the extra value that you.
They're all of the companies that are creating this kind of software are a bit in a horse race to outdo one another. And MailChimp is obviously one that is widespread and used. I have an article actually that I've written that's why you shouldn't use MailChimp. It's a little bit outdated right now, but some of it is not outdated. But partly it's, some of them are, I would say MailChimp is very good for people who are a little bit more tech savvy and are a little bit more willing to try things and break things. And some of the programs are built for simplicity and for, less features, but more the ones you may actually need. So I think all of them have more features than just like Excel or Word. They go on and on and on with features. And generally, really what you need is something that you can, create something in a short amount of time that looks nice, that's going to get somebody to take action, so that, you're making something that's got some color to it, maybe a picture or two, and then whatever action step that you're wanting people to take.
And if whoever was asking about how to use tags in MailChimp, if you want to email me, I'm Candace Jordan, and my email is artneko@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share what I've learned.
Yeah. And also, if Sue wants me to do a class on MailChimp, I'm happy to do it. So if that would help people. Anyway, we are at time. It's been great to meet some of you, and I hope that you'll come back on Monday for part 2 of this series. And feel free to bring questions, and I'll see you then.